In other words, according to you, there is no solution to Kashmir
No.
within the constitution. Devise a
No,
solution outside the constitution.
now your lordships are putting this to me.
Ultimately, that's
No,
your,
no, no, that's
your,
not what I've argued.
that's the hypothesis, that the solution has to be political outside the constitution.
It is a problem looking for a solution, and your lordships don't have to provide that solution, is what I'm saying.
All solutions have to be within the framework of a constitution.
It is within the framework, Manas. It is within the, who says it's not within the framework? Well, isn't 370 a classic form of federalism? Unlinked to the federalism that we practice? It's a classic form of federalism. There's nothing unconstitutional about it.
There can be a lot of arguments on the other side. Let's not go into all that, whether.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm
saying, Millets, it is not unheard of. It is not something that is so utterly unthinkable that a state can have a certain special status.
If you go by Dr. Ambedkar's adoption speech, it's quite clear that he wanted a unitary form, primarily unitary form with certain federal features.
It is unitary, Millets. Who says it is not unitary?
Very clear, and there's historical reasons. And let's not go into the
Ambedkar said an also very important thing. Way Jammu and Kashmir. He said that say something just come to my mind, but I've skipped. No, that's not what he said. That equality is in your mind. The equality, people, all people in this country are equal. Some are not considered equal. That's all. That applies not just to Jammu and Kashmir, that applies to a lot of places in India. So let's not go that route. Well, just because it's a union doesn't mean we are not federal. We are a quasi-federation is what we are. And that's what Ambedkar said, that we're a quasi-federation. But Manas, quite apart from that, that's how all members of parliament since 1950 have understood it. Manas, why are we? That's not their case. We are trying to find a solution, which is not the case of the Union of India.
Civil, Dr. Ambedkar in his speech, both speeches, 4th of November 1948, as well as 25th of November 1949, he has distinguished the American Federation with our federal structure, and he has specifically stated that in America, there is a citizenship of the federation as well as the state citizenship, and it permits two constitutions, the state constitution as well as the federal constitution. Correct. But in India, we have adopted a single constitution and single citizenship.
Absolutely. Right, Manas. But kindly look at it this way. It is this constituent assembly that approved 370, of which Ambedkar ji was a part.
So therefore, the question will be whether it was a temporary measure.
No, this is what the Constituent Assembly said. This is what Manas, the cabinet said. This is what the government said. This is what the government has been interpreting 370. This is what they have done, Manas, in the light of the interpretation of 370, as we have placed it before your lordships. What is 272? To replace the Constituent Assembly with the Legislative Assembly. That is trying to implement the proviso. No, they have used the proviso. Now they are arguing just to the contrary. How can your lordships even allow them to do that? We are testing, Manas. We are testing the process. We are not testing the power. We are testing the process. And the process adopted by them is the 370 sub-article 3 process. They have substituted Constituent Assembly to Legislative Assembly. Then they have imposed 356 and Parliament has become the Legislative Assembly and given consent to itself. Plenary power or any silence in 370 which allows them to do what they wanted to do. That's not their case. So we are now adjudicating a case which they have not pleaded before your lordships. If a private citizen were to do that, would your lordship ever allow it?
So, Mr. Sibal, you are saying 373 doesn't exist practically. Correct? That's your argument. Their argument is 373 exists and we've taken that.
No, they say 370.
That's the second part. Whether the process applied by them under 373, if it exists, is the proper process as per 373 or not, is the second limb of the...
But Maharaj, I'm saying something else to your lordships. They proceed on the basis that 370 exists.
Correct.
Therefore, therefore, they are not saying that 370 doesn't exist after the Constituent Assembly was drafted and nothing else happened and there's no Constituent Assembly. It's not their case. We are now, we are now adjudicating upon a case which is not the case of the Union of India before your lordships.
Many things have been said, Mr. Sibal, from both sides, which are really not, in our view, prima facie germane to the main issue is this of 370, as you say, one side of the argument that with the Constituent Assembly going away, 373 really did not subsist, only 371 survives. Their view is that 373 subsists and that's the route we have adopted. Second limb arises if 373 exists and the route they've adopted, what's the correct route, permissible or not?
But that's what I'm arguing. When I opened, I only argued on the route. If your lordships will remember, I never went into any political argument, any historical context.
So that is your argument. That
I never talked about lack of sovereignty. I never talked about federalism. I never talked of any of that. I said this is the process they have adopted and this process is unconstitutional.
I remember you also said that it's not for us to, or for you, or for to suggest what is the alternative.
Exactly.
Then when an alternative route is followed, it will be tested in its own way. But
Correct.
this is the route they have adopted.
And
They have
that,
not taken a 368 route. They have
That's
taken
correct.
a 373 route.
so the first question that your lordships have to answer is 272 valid or not?
So
And
that
to-
we'll have to decide.
Yes, and
That
that can't be decided. That can't be decided because that they have followed the route of 370 proviso, Manoj. It is their case.
Yes, yes.
So the problem there with the argument is that 370 can't be decided in the context of the argument now raised. That after the Constituent Assembly is not there, we can do what we like. But that's not what their case before the court is. Their case is that they have applied the proviso and substituted Constituent Assembly for Legislative Assembly.
That's what the CO says.
That's right. So you have to test only that, which is what I argued. I didn't argue anything else.
We are not asking you to argue beyond it.
No, they have forced me to argue beyond it. They have forced me to argue beyond it. But let me go back a
Even
little.
assuming that they have followed the route of the proviso to 373, I don't think we can prevent them from sustaining the exercise of power on the ground that even independent of that, we are entitled to.
That's not in their counter. I'm sorry, Manoj, that's not their case. I'm sorry, you read your counter.
They meant 367.
No, Manoj, in exercise of the powers under clause 1 of 370.
Absolutely.
So, Manoj, they are saying that, and then they say the proviso.
That was for incorporating the proviso.
But I'm only saying that they are.
Sorry, 367 to the, that was for amendment to the 360.
That's what I'm
But
saying.
ultimately then they invoke the power under 370 clause 3.
With the proviso, Manoj.
Yes, with the proviso.
But that's all I'm saying.
the
Manoj. I'm saying nothing more than that. That's the
We have
problem.
understood your argument on that.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
In
Manoj.
fact, we had put that question to the Attorney General also.
You also given the answer, Manoj. This is a sui generis provision of the Constitution, must be interpreted in its own terms. That's all that I'm saying, Manoj. And kindly
Well, I
take a
think
counter.
this part, I think we've conceptualized, we have put our doubts to you, you have conceptualized. your
Giving
answer
life
as
to
well.
373 through Article 367. That's their counter. That's all that we are testing, Manoj. Okay, so Manoj, that's done. That's done, Manoj. I'm done with that.